I think before we start out, I'd like to just cover a few principles which I think will connect some dots for you. And I think it's essential principles that you need to know. The first one is I get the same feeling as I got yesterday when I walked in the lecture hall. I was just like, whoa, this is a very estrogen dominant room. So, whoops. Let's start again. So I think the first thing we need to understand is what is estrogen dominance? Because some people, when they start their hormone therapies, they ask me, isn't there a danger that this estrogen is going to cause me breast cancer? And I think it's a legitimate question for them to ask. So we spend some time on that because I want to make sure when they're taking hormones, when they're exposed to hormones, that they don't, start that with a fear element. So it is true that estrogen metabolites and estrogen dominance can increase your risk for hormonal cancers. But I wouldn't say, simplistically that estrogen causes breast cancer. If you have balanced estrogen, the balancing hormone here is progesterone, and you have healthy metabolites, then you shouldn't get breast cancer. So that's why looking at the metabolites and detoxification is so important, and why a balanced estrogen-progesterone ratio or progesterone-estrogen ratio is so important to protect your breasts and other estrogen receptor site places. So if you look at the perimenopause, for example, when progesterone is going down significantly, when estrogen is fluctuating, you have a state of estrogen dominance. Even if your estrogen level is normal, during that time your progesterone is very low. So you have unbalanced estrogen with a high estrogen relative to your progesterone. And this is really the principle of it. Estrogen dominance is your body perceiving a high estrogen level, even if it's normal. It's because the progesterone is low for that estrogen level. And we see a lot of states of estrogen dominance. If you're very obese, you're producing a lot of estrone inside your body. That's E1. You have a state of estrogen dominance. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, low progesterone, it's a state of estrogen dominance. Endometriosis, breast cancer, hormonal cancers, it's often estrogen dominance or, as I've already said, progesterone deficiency. So it's very important. The body looks at hormones in ratios. Don't just give me an estrogen level. I want to see the progesterone for that estrogen level, and I want to see healthy metabolites of that estrogen. And if we've got that, balanced estrogen with good metabolites, your risk for cancer is much lower. That's much lower. That's why in integrative medicine we look at these things and try and lower risk and maximize benefit. That was the first principle. I want you to understand what estrogen dominance means. The second principle is I want you to understand what enteropathic autotoxication is. Now that sounds like a huge word, right? It's not really that difficult. Think about it. Enteropathic autotoxication. So from your gut, you're going to your liver with something and you're toxifying yourself. You're autotoxifying yourself. So this is what we call phase 3 detoxification. And I thought maybe I was diving in a bit deep to start there yesterday, but I don't think so. I think it's a good place to start. Because let's say you've done your gene tests and you've done a really good panel, the 3x4 panel, so your phase 1 and phase 2 SNPs, and you're really wanting to practice nutrigenomics, not only yourself, your family, your patients, but you really want to, practice good medicine. So you're using sulforaphane to even get the quinone reductase on board, and your phase 1, phase 2 nutrients or nutraceuticals plus diet, you're eating your broccoli and broccoli sprouts and cruciferous veg, and really proud of yourself. What's the problem there if you have a leaky gut, for example? You're going to reabsorb those toxins. Or if you have an upregulation of an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase. This is an inducible enzyme that's part of phase 2 but also phase 3 detoxification. If you have dysbiosis, let's say overgrowth of E. coli or enterococci or some other so-called bad, ugly bugs in your gut, this enzyme is upregulated in your gut and liver, beta-glucuronidase, and you will break down the conjugated toxin that you're trying to excrete, and you'll reabsorb it and retoxify yourself. So there's a very nice nutraceutical that we have called calcium D-glucarate, and you should know about it because other than gut repair, which I'm sure you guys know the 5R program already, right? Remove is the first R. Remove toxins, remove foods that you're allergic to. Replace what you're deficient in, stomach acid, digestive enzymes, bile salts if you're deficient in them. repair the lining of the gut, DGL, deglycerinated licorice, aloe, glutamine, glucosamine, all these kinds of nutrients. Repopulate the gut with probiotics and rebalance your emotional state. So I think it's very important when we're looking at detoxification, perhaps even before you look at your SNP genes, to look at the gut, repair your gut, but also to know what phase 3 is. This inducible beta-glucuronidase, which you can inhibit with calcium D-glucarate. So really nice, I was saying yesterday, really nice detox formulas. Don't just look at phase 1 and 2, including the use of sulforaphane, but they also look at phase 3 and add calcium D-glucarate. And there's very little else that inhibits beta-glucuronidase, this inducible enzyme. So I think that's the second principle I want you to really know, what enteropathic autotoxication is and why it's so important to start with your gut before you even think about detoxifying. And I'm sure most of you here are quite pro-integrative medicine, and you'll know, even when you're treating brain diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and dementia, treating or preventing, the best place to start is the gut, because toxification of the brain is one of the causes. Just one. I mean, there's many. Nutrient depletions, poor diet, inflammation, heavy metals. We can go on and on in terms of the causes for brain disease. But the most important thing is to start with the gut rather than brain pills, like all our psychotropic drugs. So that's the second principle. The third I wanted to mention, in this estrogen-dominant room, I counted the men. I was enjoying Gail's talk, but in between I counted the men. I think there's 7 men here. So the point I'm trying to make is that estrogen is even important for men. In fact, it's very important for men. When I'm working with the male's hormone levels, I will always ask for an estradiol level or a testosterone estradiol blood level so that I know where their hormones are. A man needs estrogen for cognition. So if I lower his estrogen too much, down to naught, I will switch off his brain. So it's very important that you know that a man needs estrogen. However, estrogen metabolites can be a problem for a man. Too much 4 or too much 16-hydroxyestrone increases your risk for hormonal cancers. I've seen 3 men this year alone, with breast cancer. So breast cancer occurs in men, and prostate cancer occurs in a lot of men. 70% by the age of 70 have prostate cancer. And what causes prostate cancer? Bad estrogen metabolites and low testosterone, not testosterone. So estrogen is very relevant to men, and men should be checking their estrogen level. I remember probably the first time I asked for an estrogen level in a male, it was about 12 years ago or so, maybe even longer, and the lab said, "Are you crazy? Why would you want to know an estrogen level in a male? Males don't have estrogen." Of course they have estrogen. That's my third point. You must know that males have estrogen. You should be checking their levels and their metabolites. So we check a 2 to 16 hydroxyestrone ratio in the urine to check how much good and how much bad metabolites there are. The next principle I want to just highlight again, I started with saying you need progesterone to balance your estrogen. The body loves balance. So, everyone is quite familiar with cruciferous veg and their value in terms of I3C, DIM, sulforaphane from the sprouts, and how important they are is because they elevate 2-hydroxy production, which is the low cancer-forming, non-carcinogenic metabolite, and they inhibit the formation of 4 and 16, which is down your CYP1B1 and 3A4 pathways, respectively. So you think, right, let me eat loads of this. Maybe I should eat 2 whole broccolis a day and take 20 sulforaphane tablets a day to maximize this effect. That's not the idea. Your body is about balance and ratios. You want more 2, but you still need 16. So you may ask, why do I need 16? Well, because 2 is a weaker estrogen. It's a much safer estrogen, but it's a weaker estrogen. You still need 16. 16 is good for your bones. If you have too much 2 and no 16, you'll develop osteoporosis. So we don't want to exchange cancer for osteoporosis. So understand and get the principle of balance. You want much more of the good thing. That sounds strange, but you need a bit of the bad thing. So it's not all bad. 16 is not all bad. 4 is like pretty much all bad. But 16 is sometimes, of great benefit in terms of looking after your bones. So that is important. So let's go back to just the principles. You know now what phase 3 is. It's the gut reabsorbing toxins. So remember to repair your gut before you even start. But don't forget the calcium D-glucarate, which inhibits this inducible beta-glucuronidase, which, because of toxicity in the first place, and bad gut flora, can be induced. The other thing I want to highlight, just as a principle, is this term called xenobiotics. Xenobiotics are basically chemicals in the body that are really a burden to our system to try and eliminate. So it's not just estrogen, it's other hormones, it's other toxins, it's pesticides, environmental estrogen mimetics. All of these toxins and pollutants are xenobiotics, or they call xenobiotics. They're basically estrogen mimetic type molecules that the body, struggles to deal with. We have a toxic burden at the moment, and as Yael said, to avoid it, we can fly to another planet, or we can try and clean up our environment, which I think we should be trying to do, but we should also be looking at our detoxification mechanisms inside to try and enhance the removal of these toxins. And this is where I think the genes are so useful, because you can check your phase 1, phase 2 SNPs, and with the right dietary choices or right food for you, like personalized nutrition, with the right nutraceuticals for you, again, personalized medicine, you can optimize your detoxification pathways. And, we know toxicity is already mentioned mental or brain disease, but it's also heavily involved with heart disease and autoimmune disease and all the other chronic degenerative inflammatory related problems that we see. I also mentioned yesterday another saying I have is that the solution to pollution is dilution. What do I mean by that? Well, if your body is full of toxins and you can't eliminate them well enough, your body is quite clever, wants to put them in a place where it's not toxic to your body, but where they can be stored and not kill you. And that is fat cells. So we're getting fatter on this planet. And it's not just McDonald's. McDonald's gets all the blame and all the junk food, but it's also toxicity. It's because we're not detoxifying as well as we can, one, or the toxic burden that we have is too much for our detoxification systems to deal with, and we need to store these toxins somewhere so that they don't kill us. So obesity, a modern day epidemic, is largely due to detoxification or toxification, depending on either or both issues. So I think these genes are very useful in practice, and I think globally there's a move towards doing more of these tests to personalize dietary choices and supplementation to optimize health and to improve detox. So kudos to you, Yael, for making it a bit easier for us to make our supplement choices. All right, so I think the other thing that I wanted to mention as part of the principles, we need to move over from principles as well. We'll never get past the first slide, but the other important thing is to remember, it's not just your liver that detoxifies. There's other organs that detoxify, like your skin. I mean, your skin is a bigger organ than your liver. So if you use infrared saunas or sweating, it's a very useful way to detoxify. I like to climb in an infrared sauna every now and again. Not for long, 10, 15 minutes, work up a good sweat. When you get out and have a shower, you feel incredibly healthy. You feel incredibly crystal sharp, clear, because you're sweating out those toxins. So you can use other tools to detoxify. I know I mentioned yesterday, the Trivial Pursuit question answer to the biggest organ in the body used to be the liver. Then they realized that's horribly wrong, it's the skin. But it's not the skin. I mean, we know another few organs that are bigger than that, right? I mean, your endothelium is bigger than your skin. Your interstitium is bigger than your endothelium. And I think your microbiome may be even bigger than that, although I don't know if that's really technically ours or theirs. But it's a very big organ, the microbiome. I mean, if you're thinking about how big, don't want to go into what you already know, 10 times more cells in our body, 100 times more genomic material. I'm sure all know that. But think about it just simplistically. If a kid asked me, how big is the microbiome? I would say, right, how big is the world population? Like 7 billion, 7.5 billion. There's more bacteria in one person than entire people on the whole planet. That's a lot of organ size. So the microbiome is a very, very big place. So yeah, we need the genomics of our microbiome too. Where are you? There you are. So maybe we should be, well, that's the next thing, isn't it? Get the microbiome of the DNA of our microbiome and look at that. Okay, so estrogen dominance or too much estrogen receptor stimulation is one of the major causes of breast cancer. But try and improve your vocabulary. Don't say estrogen is causing breast cancer. Say estrogen dominance or bad estrogen metabolites is causing breast cancer. So what causes estrogen overstimulation? First of all, our adrenal glands are very important. With stress and with aging, we see the same response in the adrenal gland. Your cortisol level goes up, whilst the other hormones are going down. So an elevated cortisol and a declining DHEA changes your immune system to a Th2 type immune response, and you're also gaining weight from the cortisol, and you're also gaining weight from the low DHEA. You're storing more toxins. But the changing of the immune system to a Th2 immune response makes you more prone to cancer and autoimmune disease. And it also has effects on the breast stroma and enzymes within the breast that cause overstimulation or more stimulation of the estrogen receptor. So stress and aging is really not a good thing in terms of cancer risk. So find some stress management tools, meditation, yoga, exercise, and try and look after your adrenals. I think it's important to know what you can do about a high cortisol, and I'm sure most of you know the kind of nutrients and supplements we can use for that. Herbal adaptogens are very popular, ashwagandha, rhodiola, brelora, and others. These adaptogens are very useful. If your cortisol is low, it gets elevated. If your cortisol is high, it gets suppressed. They're very safe. I would say ashwagandha is probably one of the most used herbs in the world because of its effect on cortisol. So don't forget your herbal adaptogens to lower cortisol. Other things that lower cortisol, one that I take a lot of is phosphatidylserine, or PS for short. PS lowers cortisol, but why I love it so much is it really improves your memory. It's a great nutrient to take regularly to deal with your cortisol as well as memory. Then vitamin C, but you need about 2 grams or more. Taking 50 milligrams to prevent scurvy is not going to lower your cortisol. You need a big dose of vitamin C daily to lower your cortisol. And then we use other hormones, pregnenolone, DHEA. They counteract the effects of cortisol. In fact, they're opposite in the result in the body. So often we'll find breast cancer patients have a low DHEA. DHEA is a complicated hormone though. If you've had breast cancer, we find if you supplement with DHEA, your risk for recurrence is higher. If you haven't had breast cancer and you supplement with DHEA, your risk for getting cancer is lower. So DHEA has conflicting results out there, but it's not really conflicting. It's exactly what one would think. If your level is low as you're getting older, your risk will be high. But if you have cancer and you take it, you're getting overstimulation of the estrogen receptor, and then you may increase your risk. So I use DHEA a lot in preventive medicine, as well as cortisol suppression. The other thing to look at is lifestyle, and we're seeing a lot of this in the world. Insulin resistance, increasing insulin levels. This causes overstimulation of the estrogen receptor and is a major risk factor for a lot of things, from breast cancer to Alzheimer's dementia. We spoke about phase 3 detoxification. I'm sure you've all heard of diabetes type 3. People like to get very smart out there. They like to develop new diseases. It's not a new disease. It's insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, associated with cognitive function decline, which is what we're seeing. More visceral fat, more abdominal adiposity, and cognitive decline, and then ultimately Alzheimer's. So it's just extension of type 2 diabetes into the cognitive decline space, which is what we're calling type 3. So insulin resistance is a major cause of overstimulation. Then lifestyle, obesity, smoking with heavy metal exposure, and poor diet with low minerals. This is a major problem around the world. I was reading an article the other day that did sort of a global survey to see how much of our population is low in minerals, and they checked magnesium levels, and 2 out of 3 people are suboptimal in magnesium. That's a lot of people. 2/3 of 7.5 billion is quite a lot of people are low in magnesium. And the important point I want to make about that is low mineral levels is a major problem for your detoxification pathways. There's ways to check. For example, if you want to get really fancy, you can do a cysteine sulfate ratio on your biotransformation test. That will tell you you're low in molybdenum or stomach acid. This slide here shows that if you're low in zinc, you had higher risk for breast cancer. So we know the minerals are crucial for your sulfur pathways. You need molybdenum and other sulfur metabolites to deal with detox. So it's important that we have minerals on board and not too many heavy metals. So the heavy metals are the toxic antagonists to our good minerals. So I like to ask my patients to not only try and fix their gut, but also to load up their minerals if we're trying to get onto a good detoxification regime. So it's good to have good minerals. And as I said, getting rid of the heavy metals is quite important. So we do a lot of I wouldn't say we do a lot of chelation, but we do some chelation, but we also do infrared saunas with sweating, and we also use other nutraceuticals to help with detox. So, for example, NAC elevates glutathione, which binds mercury and excretes mercury. That's a chelating, pathway that we can use without getting all technical with sodium EDTA-RD. So you can use nice oral nutrients for detox. So NAC is one of them. Chlorella is another I really like. It's a green supplement that helps bind metals and pesticides and eliminate them. Alpha-lipoic is another useful one for mercury. Modified citrus pectin or pecticlear from citrus fruit and apples can help with heavy metal clearance. So we like to get rid of these metals, and we like to supplement our minerals to lower our risk of cancer and to enhance detox. Other hormonal changes that we often see with PCOS is a high testosterone. We know that this comes from a gene called follistatin gene. So some genetic predispositions will give you a higher risk for insulin resistance, high testosterone, low progesterone, PCOS, infertility. And infertility is a big thing. I mean, yesterday we also had an estrogen dominant room. One lady was very pregnant. We told her with her condition she better not do R3C dimethylphosphamide. But 3 or 4 of the other ladies wanted to have her condition of pregnancy. So infertility is a big thing, or big field that is demanding attention out there. So it's not just detox; it's also optimization of hormones using bioidenticals, etc. That's important in integrative medicine. I've spoken about the xenobiotics and other hormonal imbalances. Low progesterone, high prolactin, low thyroid, low melatonin. All of these cause hormonal imbalances. I mentioned right in the beginning, we want balanced hormones. Imbalanced or unbalanced hormones cause overstimulation of the estrogen receptor with then increased risk of breast cancer. So estrogen metabolism and breast cancer initiation. Yale's made my job much easier by already talking about the activation and elimination pathways. So the phase 1, phase 2. Phase 1, very easy to remember. These toxins, whether it be a pharmaceutical or a toxin like a pesticide, or a hormone that's produced inside or given through HRT or the pill, or the environmental exposures of estrogen mimetics, all these toxins are big non-polar molecules, and the way the body needs to deal with them is through the liver, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, to make them water soluble and excretable. So the first phase there's a few of them, but the main one is hydroxylation. So a hydroxyl group is bound to this big toxin to make it a polar molecule that can be conjugated through phase 2. And we have various conjugation reactions. The two that almost everyone here in this room will probably have heard of are methylation. So a methyl group is bound to this intermediary metabolite. And then, through the gut and the urine, these toxins are excreted. Glutathionation is another. Acetylation, where an acetyl group is bound, is the third one. An amino acid binding to it, like glutamine or glycine, is another way. Very, very important way that's often missed. Another path is called glucuronidation, where a glucanyl group is added. This pathway is very well known to those who have a bit of an understanding of Gilbert syndrome. It's just sluggish glucuronidation. Basically, when your red cells are broken down in the spleen after their lifespan of 120 days or so, bilirubin is released, it's carried to your liver. Unconjugated bilirubin is conjugated. That's phase 2. We know conjugation is a phase 2 reaction by glucuronidation. A glucuronyl group is bound to it. If a glucuronyl group is bound to it very slowly, you have a higher unconjugated bilirubin. Very simple. That's Gilbert's. How do you treat it? Make sure your other pathways are working well and fiber. And you can actually get your unconjugated bilirubin conjugated a little bit faster to conjugated bilirubin. So these are some of the pathways. Glycination is another where a glycine group is bound to the toxin, to the intermediary metabolite. Yale highlighted something that is extremely important. To induce or accelerate phase 1, if your phase 2 is not working well, is extremely dangerous. Those metabolites, the hydroxylated metabolites from phase 1, are extremely toxic. They're more toxic than the original toxin. They're called intermediary metabolites, and they're very, very high risk molecules for cancer, etc. So a fast phase 1 with a slow phase 2 is a disaster. So how's a nice, quick and easy way to make phase 1 fast? Have some alcohol and some pills, right? So you're inducing phase 1 spectacularly well with drink and booze and pills. So before you do that, I would say, make sure your phase 2 is working. So good quality B vitamins like folate, B12, B6, take these vitamins preferably in the methylated form. Your methylation will be working. Take something like NAC or alpha-lipoic, but preferably, NAC is the one most prescribed to elevate glutathione. Look after your liver with nutrients like milk thistle. This will make your phase 2 upregulate, and then you can upregulate your phase 1 with your champagne and your tranquilizer, whatever you're using. If phase 2 is working, you can accelerate phase 1. Don't accelerate phase 1 with a sluggish phase 2 and think you're going to be healthy. You're going to have a hangover. You're going to be really sick because those toxins, acetaldehyde and everything's all hanging around there. But if you induce phase 2 first and then phase 1 and you have a rapid phase 2, cool bananas. I'm not saying have a lot of pills and alcohol, but it's easier for your body to metabolize. So the important thing here is progesterone is our hormone of balance, and progesterone balances estrogen. Don't worry about knowing all the enzymes. You don't really have to understand principles. The principle here is progesterone influences enzymes which balance estrogen. If you want to remember it another way, remember that estrogen has proliferative effects on the breast. Progesterone has anti-proliferative effects. Balance. Nature likes balance. If your progesterone and estrogen are balanced, you won't get breast cancer. So here are some of the metabolites. Your estrogen molecule and other toxins, but we're talking about estrogen today, and men have estrogen too, remember. Their testosterone is converted to estrogen by aromatase, and estrogen then goes down the same pathways as does a lady's. So down your cytochrome P450, 3A4 or 5, the 3A4 is the most described, you produce 16-hydroxyestrone. This can produce estriol in a lady, which I like quite a lot, because E3 we use quite a bit in integrative medicine. It has very good effects on breast cancer protection, very good effects on vaginal health. The pH in the vaginal flora is improved with estriol, and it also lowers your risk for bladder infections and urogenital infections. So we often use E3 as a hormone in integrative medicine. Also, interestingly, Mother Nature loves estriol. During pregnancy, your estriol levels and progesterone levels are through the roof, higher than you can ever imagine. Way, way higher than any time of your menstrual cycle. And the reason being, they're cancer protective. Estriol and progesterone. Mother Nature knows how good they are at preventing cancer. We still see breast cancer in pregnancy. It's just much, much, much less common. When last did you see a pregnant person who had breast cancer? It's rare, because they have these protective hormones. So your pathway is really, and I think you should know it. You should know these 3 pathways. Somebody has to know it, and I think you're the right people to know it, because you're practicing nutrigenomics. You need to know what you're doing. So down the cytochrome P450 1A1 pathway, you produce 2-hydroxyestrone. These are non-carcinogenic, but remember what I said earlier, it's a weak estrogen. So the stronger estrogen is 16. You need the 16 for bones. Your body wouldn't make something you don't need. We're making 16 because we need it, but you want much less of it and much more 2. And your easiest way to get that recipe right, lots of 2 and less 4 and 16, is to eat broccoli, preferably without the pesticides, which are another toxin, xenobiotic, that the liver has to deal with. So try and get organic broccoli or kale or other members of the cruciferous vegetable family. I have some patients who really, really don't like broccoli. I don't know if they were grown up punished to eat broccoli before they left the table or what it was, but they really don't like it, then we give the R3C DIM or sulforaphane supplement. I give it anyway, because very few people are getting enough broccoli to deal with the toxic burden that we have. Sorry? Yeah, exactly. So, unless you're eating it raw, straight, preferably not too far from the farm and it's organic, then you're probably not getting enough of the sulforaphane. And also, I mean, I love shopping at Woolies, but you don't always find broccoli sprouts there, for the sulforaphane. So it's much easier to supplement there. And my friend Harry Seftel, you can say it's expensive urine, but breast cancer is more expensive. I'd rather have lots of 2-hydroxy estrone in my urine, and I'll take my sulforaphane, thanks. The other one that's very, very carcinogenic is 4-hydroxy. That goes down the CYP1B1 pathway. So if you get your report from Yale and it says you've got a CYP1A1 SNP, what does that mean? It means that your SNP, or your gene, rather, controlling 2-hydroxy formation is a problem. If your 1A1 is not working, you need sulforaphane or cruciferous veg or R3C DIM to make your 1A1 work better. If 1B1 is a problem, then this pathway is a problem. If 3A4 is a problem, then this pathway is a problem. So 4-hydroxy is one of our most dangerous metabolites, but even more dangerous is the quinones, 4-hydroxyquinone and 2-hydroxyquinone. These are very, very toxic metabolites. So we know that the P450 system controls your phase 1 metabolism. Then we've got what we call intermediary metabolites. These are hydroxylated metabolites. Then we get phase 2, which is your conjugation, to make them more excretable in the urine and stool. And conjugation, the typical one to excrete these, is methylation. So we check the COMT gene or the MTHFR gene. I love the COMT gene because it's so relevant to my practice. Because methylation is very important to neurotransmitter metabolism. And so many people have depression and anxiety, mood disorders. So I want to know how well they're methylating, or what the potential is to methylate for the brain. So we'll do our homocysteine level and blood, because that's our blood reflection of how well you're methylating. And we'll do your COMT SNP, or we'll get it in the 3x4 panel, so that we know what your potential is for good methylation. It doesn't mean if you've got a COMT SNP that you can't methylate. It just means that you need some nutrients to methylate better the expression of that gene we want to change. So that old story of doesn't matter what gene you have, but what you expose the gene to is what is important. So if you're eating greens and beans with lots of folate and taking homocysteine type lowering formulas or TMG or SAMe, even if you've got a COMT SNP, the expression of that gene will be better methylation. So, but at least you know that you need to really concentrate on your methylation if you've got the SNPs. I've checked mine. My COMT is perfect, thank goodness. I don't have any methylation problems. Interestingly, I did do the panel, and mine came up as similar to, I'm not allowed to talk about other people's results, but similar to Nikki's. We've got collagen problems. So, and I thought, shit, man, excuse the French. I thought that's really amazing, because if I think back over the years, my medical issues have been bone fractures. I broke both my wrists playing squash, I broke my arm, I broke my ankle. It's like hectic. Bone injuries. No other medical issues, and all my other genes are fine. I'm actually low to medium or low on everything except collagen. That's my purple. It's collagen. So it gives you an indication where your problems may be and what you should do about them to prevent. I mean, isn't that very smart medicine? I think it's tremendous. So our R3C, I never use R3C on its own, because you're going to create just intermediary metabolites. You need to do R3C with phase 2 activators. So we use R3C DIM, for example. DIM helps with those, or sulforaphane. The problem is that even if you have these conjugation reactions going very well, you still produce these quinones. And these quinones can be very dangerous, even if you're methylating well. You're munching your greens and you're getting your folate and you're taking your DIM, but you still produce these quinones. So there's a very nice enzyme that Yale alluded to, the quinone reductase, which says, okay, right, you haven't been such a bad boy or girl, let's give you another chance. We'll recycle that toxin so that you can try again. So sulforaphane is great to activate that enzyme, but also sometimes it doesn't happen. So you're left with these quinones, and they're very, very carcinogenic. They're some of the most carcinogenic toxins in our body. I want you to keep with me. If you're left with these quinones and you want to get rid of them, or if you don't know if you're left with them but you still want to get rid of them, or if you don't want cancer, there's only 2 nutrients that I know of that work extremely well at getting rid of quinones, and that's NAC, N-acetylcysteine, and resveratrol. So add it to your toolkit, your detox toolkit. I've already mentioned the calcium D-glucarate for phase 3, and now here's some more extra ones. So sulforaphane for your recycling and for your quinone elimination, but for extra protection, add in some resveratrol and NAC. Interestingly, don't use particularly the NAC with at the same time as sulforaphane. You know, they're both working with very dangerous metabolites, so it's suggested that you use them separately. It's similar with resveratrol and sylvestrol. They say use them separately or not together. You know, we don't want any competition with these superhero detox things. We want them to work powerfully, and then you give another powerful one a chance to work. I mean, these, and I liked what Yael said, it's like, don't take sulforaphane with chemo. Why? This is powerful stuff. It's going to clear your medicine before it's done its job that you're trying to get done. So don't think it's just a little, you know, multivitamin tablet that you're taking when you take sulforaphane or NAC or resveratrol or these things. This is powerful, even powerful enough to get rid of chemo out of the system. And often detox post chemo is warranted because you know, people need a recovery phase. And what annoys me about oncologists sometimes is like, your chemo's done, you know, go. You shouldn't just go. You know, you've got stem cells, the cancer stem cells still that'll cause the cancer to come back at some point, or another cancer from the chemo. Plus, your immune system's taken one hell of a knock. Plus, you're toxified from all those poisons that they've given you. So you need to address all of these things: detox, immune reparation, repair, and you know, prevention of recurrence. And all of this is detox comes into the story, and that's why holistic medicine is so useful, because we will look at their nutrition, their gut, their detox, prevention of recurrence, all of these things, their hormone balance and so on, is important. So pollutants, and our world is full of them, stimulates 1B1 activity, which produces more of these dangerous metabolites. So it's no doubt that we're seeing more cancer these days, and the reason is more, you know, induction of these types of enzymes. The 1B1 enzyme is going to make more toxins, and the beta-glucuronidase enzyme is going to cause you to reabsorb them. So we're just toxifying and retoxifying and auto-retoxifying and until you get sick and can't detoxify anymore anyway. Okay, so this is a very important slide, and I think you need to kind of take a photographic picture of it in your head, or in your hippocampus or somewhere, and just have it always. You should really know the slide if you want to be dealing with nutrigenomic reports, and also your patients and yourself. So you must know the 1A1 pathway takes you to 2-hydroxy, the 1B1 to 4-hydroxy, the 3A4 to 16-hydroxy. So that's old news to you already. You already know that. So 4 and 16-hydroxy are considered carcinogenic. 4 and 16 catechol estrogens increase your risk of breast cancer. Increased CYP1B1 or 3A4 activity should increase the risk of breast cancer. So how do we change to a 1A1? Cruciferous veg, sulforaphane, R3C, DIM. But I don't do R3C on its own, as I said, because you've got too much activation of phase 1 and no activation of phase 2. Rather do upregulation of phase 2 first or with it, but preferably first. So there's lots of different types of nutrients we can do to lower our risk and to enhance detoxification. So vitamins, minerals I've already mentioned, antioxidants. You need minerals and antioxidants for these phase 2 pathways and even phase 1 to be functional. Phytochemicals, plant-based diet, organic preferably. Lignans, fiber. I mentioned fiber for glucuronidation, another of the phase 2 detoxification pathways. And a diversity. This is a word that seems to be coming up a lot in the literature lately. Everyone, not everyone, but a lot of us know now, I'm sure everyone in this room knows for sure, that the gut, you know, the microbiome is crucial to our health. We want healthy bacteria in our gut. We don't want dysbiosis. We don't want small intestinal bacterial overgrowth of bacteria. We want healthy lacto and bifido and others in our colon. We all know that. But I think it's important to go a step further and realize we need even more than that. We need diversity of our microbiome. We need even more than those bacteria. There's lots of bacteria, not just 2. There's 1 trillion bacteria in your gut. So you need diversity of healthy bacteria. And how do you do that? Healthy food, organic food, prebiotic fibers, prebiotic foods, probiotics, just, improve the diversity. Cruciferous veggies we've spoken about. Sulforaphane is more potent than DIM, which is more potent than IgC. So we're progressing. We're getting to something, a superfood is sulforaphane or broccoli sprouts. But then don't forget your calcium D-glucarate or beta-glucuronidase in addition, especially if there's something wrong with your gut. And most people have some gut issues. They have IBS or a leaky gut. It's very easy to get a leaky gut. I mean, it's 1 cell layer thick on the lining of your gut. A little hole in that or separation of that, and protein molecules will leak straight through and cause inflammation, antigenic overload or antigenic toxicity with inflammation and autoimmunity and toxicity risk. Flax, soy, I'm not going to go through all of these in great detail, I'm just going to mention them here. Green tea is a powerful breast cancer preventer, and even when patients have cancer we use green tea. It stops new blood vessel formation, stops spread of cancer as well. Turmeric, curcumin is flying the last few days, last few years, all around the world. It's been used for a long time, much longer than that, but it's become extremely popular as a cancer preventer, cancer treatment. It's like our number 1 go-to natural treatment when you're wanting to prevent cancer. So curcumin is very useful. I remember years back reading a trial, I mentioned it yesterday as well, where they looked at people who were eating a lot of turmeric, and they found, well, first of all, if they did autopsies on these people, they were dead anyway, right, which is not great. It's not the best place to be, the autopsy table, but they autopsied a bunch of people who were taking turmeric, and none of them had colon cancer, because the lining of their colons was yellow. They had a lot of turmeric, but they weren't absorbing enough, so they didn't have systemic protection from the turmeric, so they had other internal cancers. So over the last few years, I suppose, because of that study and also others checking levels, we know that curcumin's not well absorbed, turmeric's not well absorbed. So now there's a lot of new products out there that enhance the absorption to make it more bioavailable. The one I'm using at the moment is UltraCur from Germany. It's 15,000 times more bioavailable. They made nanoparticles of it. So you can get liposomal forms, nanoparticles, all fancy, nice oil and peptide combinations to improve curcumin. So we have now our liposomals, we have our biocurcumin, we have special oils attached to it. But the fact that so many companies want to make it means that there's a huge demand for it. And that's great. I love curcumin. I've always loved curcumin. I remember when I started doing lectures on integrative medicine, well, a few years after, about 2007, I was like, curcumin. This was 10 years ago. And some of my patients were calling me Dr. Curcumin. And it's back. Curcumin's back. I mean, everyone wants curcumin. It's a great nutrient. It helps with detox as well. So I'm putting it on the slide. It's great anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, detoxifier, cancer fighter, cancer preventer. Does everything you want it to do. AHCC, that's active hexocellulose compound, that's from mushrooms from the east. So they have a beta-glucan in them, which helps fight cancer. We use a lot of these, shiitake, maitake, reishi, cordyceps. These mussels are powerful cancer fighters and help with the immune system stimulation. Caffeine is a good one, not a bad one, believe it or not, especially organic coffee. It inhibits interleukin-8, slows down cancer spread. Anti-cancer effects. Melatonin, we use big doses, 25 milligrams plus in a cancer patient. It has profound effects on estrogen cancer. Estrogen, overstimulation of the estrogen receptor-induced cancer. I don't want to say estrogen-induced cancer. You know what I mean already, we've spoken about it. Vitamin E, vitamin A, anti-inflammatories. Resveratrol, we know it gets rid of quinones, but it also has profound effects on genes. Also nerf, this global antioxidant, anti-inflammatory type gene effects. So resveratrol is very useful. Grapeseed extracts. CoQ10 is a powerful one for your mitochondria. Selenium, very good for your immune system. The mushroom, seaweed, your B vitamins. Vitamin D is a very important one, especially with cancer prevention. A lot of people are low in vitamin D. I mean, you're seeing about 80–90%, even in this country, of people are low in vitamin D. It's inexpensive, easy to do. We use big doses, 50,000 units a week until we get to optimum vitamin D levels. Very important for prevention of hormonal cancers. Very important for prevention of lymphoma and other cancers, prostate, breast. Very useful, and also useful for insulin resistance. And then your omegas and other oils. CLA is another oil that you should really remember with breast. Very, very well studied to lower risk and for treatment. Okay, so now I want to go back a bit. How much time do we have, Jason? 15. So I think you've got the main principles. Not that you can go to sleep now. Not quite there. I just want to, because we've got through the main things now, we can look at each a little bit deeper. And you know how medicine is. You can go deeper and deeper and deeper. So it keeps it exciting for all of us. So toxic exposure we've spoken about. Leaky gut we've mentioned and how to deal with that. Leaky gut is very important because that is the reason we're retoxifying. Your liver's working like as hard as it can, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 even, getting these toxins there, and then you just reabsorb them. So very important to check the gut. Yeast, bacteria, parasites. So bacteria most people know of is dysbiosis or SIBO. Those are the two main things where you have bad bacteria in your gut instead of good ones. And you all know the bacteria needs to be in the colon, not in your small bowel. That's SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Not a good thing. You want the bacteria in the right place. So some people sort of over probiotic themselves into a state of SIBO. So be careful, don't overdo probiotics. Your body likes balance. It wants lots of good and only a few bad. So bacteria is important. There's a doctor in Italy, Dr. Simoncini. Some of you may have heard of him. He thinks all cancers, or he states that all cancers are caused by fungi. He calls them fungi are the cause of all cancers. This is the bad bug that causes cancer. He says fungi. So fungi or yeast is well associated, and it's the right environment for cancer to develop. I mean, yeast loves sugar. So sugar we know is a fuel for cancer. And pyruvate or glucose metabolism is a fermenting process in the cell cytoplasm. It's a non-oxygen rich environment. The mitochondria is aerobic phosphorylation. It's an oxygen environment. So cancer is dependent on sugar to make pyruvate and 2 ATP molecules in the cell cytoplasm. So we know this a long time, that the yeast kind of environment is a pro-cancer environment. So get rid of the yeast in your gut, stop eating so much sugar and processed foods, and alcohol also feeds yeast. And then there are some good yeasts like Saccharomyces. We get these in probiotics to try and get good yeast into your gut. And we know if you have a very healthy gut with a good gut flora, that your risk for cancer is way, way lower, and you detoxify very well. Your probiotics, your bacteria in your gut are involved with the detox reaction. It's not just your liver. Remember, there's more of these bacteria than we have cells in our body. Never mind just the liver. The interesting thing though, and I put it on the slide, is parasites, because I know Simoncini thinks fungi are the cause of all cancer, but there's also parasites, and the breast microflora has been studied extensively of late, and there's a lot of theory out there that perhaps parasites are very closely linked with breast cancer. So get rid of your parasites too. We've spoken about nutrient deficiencies. I think you get the bigger picture of the SNPs and the cytochrome P450 system and what phase 1, 2, 3 are. But to drive all of this happening, you need enough minerals and vitamins and antioxidants and nutrients to make all of that happen. It's not just a case of take your sulforaphane, don't eat anything else, and phase 1, 2 is going to work perfectly. You need to be nutritionally compromised not compromised to make this all happen. Food allergies. So we do a lot of intolerance tests. A little bit of controversy about the IgG-based test, but if you've got an inflamed gut or some irritated immune system or an autoimmune system, it's good to know what your gut may be reacting to. So we do IgG in the practice. We do IgG tolerance tests to see, and that's quick. You get the results while you're there to see if there's any food that you may be intolerant to. More specific allergy-based tests are the IgG RAS, which you can also do. So you can do these food sensitivity tests to see. We were chatting yesterday about some of the other tests that are on this 3x4 panel, and it's useful, to know your caffeine, salt, and lactose. And you were asking, why not lactase? Why not lactose intolerance? Because a lot of my patients ask about it. So just something else came to mind, and I better mention it because otherwise I'll beat myself up later. The beta-glucuronidase enzyme that can be inhibited with calcium D-glucarate. There's two other things that inhibit that enzyme. A certain specific bacteria or probiotic, Lactobacillus plantarum, and can inhibit it. So Lactobacillus plantarum, not Lactobacillus acidophilus, must be specifically plantarum. And then the third thing is milk thistle. Interesting, that in your liver can inhibit beta-glucuronidase. So here's a little secret. I mean, if you think about it, if you take sulforaphane and milk thistle, sure, you're in good shape. Because you're inhibiting, you're improving phase 1, 2, and 3, and you're protecting your liver because your liver loves milk thistle to regenerate itself. So that's really powerful. You're regenerating the organ that's looking after you. So I think that makes a lot of sense to do sulforaphane and milk thistle all the time, every day. Why not? We're living in a toxic world. Why not continue trying to detoxify? So some of the symptoms of toxic burden, sensitivity to these exogenous exposures, malaise, pain, fatigue, joint muscle pains, poor exercise tolerance. Often I find people are very low in energy if they're very toxic. So one of your things that you should look for in a chronic fatigue, exhausted person is toxicity. Improve their detox, improve their gut health, and a lot of that is part of what we're doing in a chronic fatigue syndrome or a fibromyalgia patient. Before I go and give them T3 and low-dose naltrexone and chelation therapies, I'm going to be looking at optimization of their normal physiological processes like gut health and detox. And this I mentioned, cognitive function decline. Toxification of the brain, mercury, aluminium, these are major causes of Alzheimer's dementia. We can get rid of these toxins. We don't have to overexpose ourselves to them, and we can collate them out of us. Be careful of aluminium cookware. Be careful of mercury in your mouth. These heavy metals not only increase your risk for Alzheimer's, they cause Alzheimer's. So we need to be getting rid of them. So we know now these non-polar fat-soluble molecules need to be hydroxylated phase 1, conjugated phase 2, and then eliminated by your bowel and gut with a healthy phase 3. Low beta-glucuronidase, high calcium D-glucarate or milk thistle or right gut bacteria, particularly Lactobacillus plantarum, as I said. The liver we've spoken about. Phase 1, the important thing to remember is that we want a fast phase 2 or a healthy phase 2 before we induce phase 1. So if you have your biotransformation tests done, Yo was saying you can do other tests, functional tests. So you can do like a biotransformation test where you use aspirin, caffeine, and paracetamol given by the lab, and then the lab will collect some urine and blood and saliva, and you can actually see how each of these conjugation reactions are working, from glycination to glutathione and your hydroxylation. You can see how everything is working, what percentage, and then you know what nutrients you need to enhance the detoxification process. So it's important to know that you want a functioning phase 2 before you induce or excite phase 1. So these are the other phase 1s, but hydroxylation is by far the most important, especially for estrogen detox, but others include oxidation, dehydrogenation, epoxide hydration, and metabolic dealkylation, if you want to be a biochemist and know them all. And us as doctors these days are becoming more biochemists. So phase 1, there are various substances that activate it. I've mentioned alcohol, nicotine, and drugs, sulfonamide, steroids, and foods. We know the value of cruciferous vegetables, but don't just do R3C. You want phase 2 working as well. Nutrients like B1, B3, C, caraway dill, antioxidants, they're all very important in activating phase 1. And then your phase 1 inhibition. It's important to have this information. It's hard to remember them all, but grapefruit juice is a very well-known one. So it's not good to take grapefruit seed or grapefruit juice with medicines. We know that grapefruit seed can really affect your elimination of the drug. There's always one exception to the rule, and I'm not saying do this, I mentioned it yesterday as well, but people who find that their Viagra doesn't work anymore, take it with grapefruit juice. It will start working again. It will work longer and better. The reason is that the toxin, once the drug is a toxin, once the toxin is eliminated, your cytochrome or your gut reabsorbs the toxin if you take grapefruit seed, because grapefruit seed is an inhibitor of these detoxification pathways. So you reabsorb the toxin. So grapefruit juice would be a classic example of something that induces enterohepatic autotoxication or retoxification of the excreted drug metabolites. So you know all of these reactions now, or you're familiar with them. The amino acid conjugations with glycine, glutamine, taurine. Very useful, these amino acids. We use a lot of amino acids in our therapies. Glutamine I'm a big lover of. It helps with gut repair, the gut lining repair. It's very good for your muscles post-training. Take a bit of glutamine powder, extremely good for muscle recovery. Also very useful for growth hormone secretion. So glutamine is a wonderful all-rounder there. And here you can see it's on our amino acids for detox. So glutamine is a really A+ student. If nutraceuticals were in a class, I would give glutamine an A+. It does so many good things for us. Sulfation is another pathway that we can easily support with a bit of onions and garlic in our food. Even molybdenum mineral helps a bit there. So the others, glucuronidation, acetylation, methylation, we've mentioned. So I know these words sound big initially, but once you start using them in practice and talking to them, or talking about them to your colleagues and patients, I think it's really not that difficult. I think Russian language is much more difficult. So how do we do this detox test? Hormones. Yeah, we can actually stop there after this. The detoxification test. There's lots more info here, and you're all welcome to this talk. Yael has got it. She can email it to you. There's a lot more that I've put in here on a bit more in-depth look at the different pathways. But I think we've gotten across the main things. So this is the detox test I was talking about: aspirin, Panado, caffeine, and then the lab will analyze for you what's going on. Supplementing with NAC, glutathione, glycine, calcium D-glucarate, cofactors, all important to get a faster phase 2. This recipe, fast phase 1, slow phase 2, is a disaster waiting to happen. You want a fast phase 2 and a slow phase 1. So I mentioned this if you do a biotransformation test, one of the things they'll tell you if there's a problem is a high cysteine to sulfite. That will tell you that you're low in stomach acid or low in molybdenum. So these can be supplemented. All right, so we'll stop there. But as I say, if you want the slides or more information, Yael does have